After some initial promising information about the new Biden-backed COVID stimulus plan, we entered this week not knowing what was gonna be left of it when it finally is passed. I mean, Biden was talking about the minimum wage hike being stripped out. They were gonna be hyper micro targeting these checks so that like 7 people in Wisconsin would get it and that's about it. But it looks like, based on some of the most recent developments, we might be moving a little bit back towards the bill, which looked better as of about a week ago. House Ways and Means Chairman Richard Neal released legislation that would send the full stimulus payment to individuals earning $75,000 per year, rather than the $50,000 cutoff they were going to have. Couples earning $150,000, obviously. Congressional Democrats had explored curtailing that benefit to $50K and $100K for married couples, because of people like Joe Manchin and all of that. They'd also talked about the change from the sort of minimum cutoff point to the max, like ramping very quickly up to losing more and more of the money. They've sort of backed off of that a little bit. It's gonna be interesting to see, of course, that's the House. When we again are talking about the Senate, Manchin is still there. It's still a 50-50 split. Jordan, is Manchin the guy who would tank this entire thing if he doesn't get the low cutoff point that he wants?
Well, I think it'd be foolish if he did, because there's people in West Virginia, like his home state, that desperately need help. Again, to reference that new enterprise, Faz and his team went to West Virginia and talked to people on the ground, who talked to people with real life circumstances, people who are forgoing critical medical care, medical treatment, people who are living paycheck to paycheck, who desperately need this help. So if Manchin were to do this, and for people unaware, Joe Manchin is a multi-millionaire. So for Joe Manchin to put an end to this, and people who got a meager $600 in December to not get a follow-up check or additional funds in that same effort is unbelievably callous. Talks about sunsetting it at a faster clip. Talks about debates over shifting the amount from 14 to 1,000. I mean, we're seeing some pushback from Democrats on that, which is great. I'm not going to really exhale until it's done, because it could change up until the last minute. So I think it's really unwise for Manchin to stand in the way of this, because he'll be known as the person who blocked benefits from millions of people.
Yeah, on the checks, you're right. And also he's pushing for a lower increase to the minimum wage. I'm sure he'd be perfectly happy with it not raising at all, but he's saying no 15, that's crazy. That's Jetsons money, we can't have that. $11 an hour, that's money that's grounded in the here and now. That's what he wants. Now, in that House bill that I referenced, $15 an hour minimum wage, that hike is included in the House bill. Again, we don't know for sure what's gonna happen in the Senate. Not only with people like Joe Manchin and potentially others who don't want to raise the minimum wage, who think that standing as the bulwark against the lowest income people in America making more money is a great way to kick off your relationship with the voters between now and the midterm elections. We also don't know if it's going to be allowed under reconciliation. And even Bernie, we showed some video of him defending it yesterday, didn't say whether he thought that Vice President Kamala Harris should intervene to make sure that it is adjudicated to be able to be done under the rules of reconciliation. So there's still a lot that we don't know about how this is gonna go. But at the very least, the House version of this bill is $1,400 checks rather than 2,000, notwithstanding, about as good as it was likely to be under this Democratic Party.
Yeah, I want to also let people know, and you might have seen that the Chamber of Commerce now and Jamie Dimon and some of the wealthiest individuals and most powerful individuals representing the business class are meeting with Biden today. And the Daily Post just reported that out. But what that could lead to is more business pressure on clamping down benefits. So I really hope that's not the case. But we're seeing more external pressure to keep your benefits lower. And what that ultimately means is it forces people, we've talked about that, you and I know I've talked about this so much throughout the course of the pandemic on this show, is just these types of actions just push people into unsafe situations. It makes them more willing to accept unsafe work. It makes them more willing to turn a blind eye to situations they shouldn't be in just because they need to survive. You shouldn't have to choose between getting sick and COVID and surviving. paying your bills. That's an unfair calculation when we have the resources to take care of everybody. So now we're seeing Wall Street deployed to keep these benefits down, ultimately to the betterment and enrichment of corporations.
Yeah, and alternatively, in theory, we could just give it to everybody. I know it's a radical idea. And the thing is, like, look, we're of the sort of people who generally are not interested in more economic resources going to the wealthiest people in the country. But we also understand that there is a cost to just sitting down or thinking about how exactly can we target this and what should the cutoff and what should the ramp up be and all of that. And that can be measured in time, in the additional weeks that this is gonna take to actually be sent out. All of the people who will face economic ruin during that time, as well as the people that even under the most carefully considered micro-targeting scheme will be left out who should not. Because again, all of these conversations, whether we're talking about $75,000 a year or 50 or whatever, all of this is based off of outdated information that is not representative of people's economic reality during and in the continued effect of the pandemic. There are going to be, no matter what they do, millions of people who made whatever amount of money you want to imagine back in 2019 and are not making anything during 2020. And those people need assistance now. That's just the way it is. We can get back to raising the taxes on the wealthy and all that later on. This is not in the interests of rich people getting richer. We need to make sure that if that is the cost to all of these people who have fallen on incredibly hard times, getting the aid they need, that is a price that we should be willing to pay, and is certainly one that we're capable as a country of paying.
Well, this represents the problem with means testing in general, because there's all these catches and asterisks and things you need to qualify for and forms and whatnot. Like, it's a Rube Goldberg machine of benefits, basically. And when you have to, because of this, because you're relying on a year where you were working and your income then, now they're saying, okay, go hurry up and fill out your taxes and get your taxes done so you can qualify that way. Okay, well, that ignores how deliberately complicated the tax process is because of lobbyists for companies like H&R Block and all of these tax prep companies, making the tax code extremely difficult to comprehend, and you have to rely on people like that. It's just another problem that Congress themselves has created and is now a blockade in access to benefits. The easiest way to do it, to make sure nobody falls through the cracks. Also, what if you just can't afford to do it right now? What if you are just trying to wait to the last minute to just get it in under the wire, and maybe you need to start a payment plan or something like that. Like, there's so many other circumstances, but the easiest way to do it is just give it to everybody and then adjust the tax brackets and then tax it back retroactively for people who you think don't need it. That's it. It's that simple. But they don't want to do that because that just opens up the floodgates. Then it shows, look, the government actually can help you, and they don't want that because then you're going to expect that in future crises.
Yeah, and look, if they want to avoid that situation, don't get us into these sorts of crises. How about that as a trade-off? Actually care when disaster is looming, and then you don't need to provide as much aid. You know it's gonna require a lot of aid? Climate change continuing to ravage our country. So maybe if we solve it, you won't have to do as much FEMA funding and all of that later on. Think about it, US government.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.